right, hello folks. I realized that I was going to do a tour of the Pandemic Theater, but some of you may have never even been to the Scene Shop in general at the 13th Street building. So I am here to give you a quick tour. Right now I am in the parking garage of the 13th Street building. You can see behind me over here is the glass lobby with the elevators in it, and security it sits in there. And then across the parking lot over here, you're gonna see a door with a green sign above it that says Scene Shop, right? You're just gonna go through that. It's right next to, if you need a bigger symbol, right next to this giant screaming mouth here, a big sign that says Scene Shop with an arrow, whoop, and then come over here to this double door. It gets you through to the Scene Shop, okay? So we're gonna go through that door right now. Walking. On our left here, family restroom. It's a one-stall wonder, you know, so gender neutral. This is the loading dock of the building. So our and the shop is right here. So our scenery, once it's built, can come easily right out this door. Okay, this is what the door looks like when it's closed. If you need it, it's room 101. So when you enter that Viking Scenic Studio, on your left, if you've forgotten to do your wellness app, you can take your temperature here. And this touch-free 97.5 on the live. It's a mess because nobody's really been in here, but I've been doing a lot of work. All of these lights here are about to be donated to a local theater company. And this is all cases for lighting equipment that we're using in the theater. Immediately past the thermometer here, we have my office, okay? And this is my shrine to my 2.5-year-old daughter, who you will be becoming very familiar with if you're not already. I love her. And so if I'm not out in the shop making noise, I'm probably sitting in that chair, drafting on that machine. So that's my office. Coming in a little bit further. All these boxes, by the way, I just replaced all the speakers in the rehearsal halls because they were blown. So that's what all these boxes are from. And there's some of the old blown speakers. I'm gonna hopefully see if I can get them repaired. This side of the space over here is where the materials are kept. So sheet goods, plywood, luan, and then stick goods, 2x4s, 1x4s. The long ones are over here, and the shorter ones are over there on that rack. This side of the room is also where all the major stationary power tools are, and we'll be doing more demos on these. I sort of flip-flopped the semester in hopes that the pandemic is a little more under control towards the end of the semester, so we can get in here, get our hands on these. But this is our table saw stop, really great table saw. Dust collectors here, radial arm saw, miter saw. So this is kind of the workhorse of the room, and the table saw is used a lot too. But we do this is what we cut all of the 2x4, 1x4 to make flats and platforms and things like that. You know, we have drill press, bandsaw. This is a panel saw, so it's kind of like a vertical table saw for cross cutting. So if you're cutting the short ways across something, you know, sheets come, they're 4 foot by 8 foot rectangles, like this kind of shrunken down version. And so the panel saw is for cutting the 4 foot direction, and the table saw is going to be for cutting the 8 foot direction, the long ways. Over here, a welder. I was desperately wanting to get a section on welding in this semester because it's a good semester for it. We don't really have a lot of the building to do, so we would have time. But I I can't afford, I tried to work out to afford a helmet for each person, but I don't want to share helmets for obvious reasons this semester. So that is unfortunate, but we'll work it in sometime. Over here, this is a CNC router I built, CNC computer numerically controlled. So essentially a computer can control that router to route or cut shapes into wood, foam, plastic, anything like that. Use it a lot for arc if we have a lot of arcs to do, because those are not fun to cut by hand. So that is this side of the room. Over here, this is typically where we would sort of gather to have class. When we're finally face to face, you can see we've created the circle of death. Hopefully not death, I'm just kidding. And there's a little tick mark on there, so we'll have chairs spaced out along this circle. It'd be nice and you know, physically distant, because I do not like the term socially distant. We're still socializing, we're just physically distant from each other. And so that's this side of the room. We generally keep this pretty clear because this is where we like to lay stuff out, like something is laid out here. I think Russ Borsky is doing some sort of project, either for a class, or it looks like probably for a class. So we can lay stuff out and put it together over here. And then in order to put it together, you might need some tools and some hardware. So hardware, screws, staples, bolts, all that kind of stuff right over here. This is the tool room. We try and keep it relatively organized and clean. It's not too bad, all things considered, being like left. Everything's kind of a time capsule right now. I mean, I've been here a little bit, but not very much, especially compared to normal. But you know, screw guns, staplers, sanders, things like that, all lives in here. Everything's pretty much got a place. This is some new equipment I've got to find and label some places for. But then you'll see, like, we outline all these things on here where they hang on the pegboard, so we know what's missing. Obviously, we're missing some wrenches. I think they're up in the black box probably, because there was a lighting project last semester. Locking pliers are missing, things like that. So, but we know after we take something out of here, we know where it goes back, because we have, you know, we have all of these nice handy dandy labels, or at least that's how I like to do it. That's the tool room. If we need any of that. There's some more overflow of materials over here, things that we don't use quite as often, or specialty materials. This is vacuum form. Which is like a, you know, a thin plastic that you sort of start to melt and then suction around a mold, and this makes it look like brick, or you know, that's a fancy molding we've used for a million shows. This is a similar thing, but it's out of cardboard, or a cardboard, like they call it pulp art, pulp, P-U-L-P. And so then that makes a really nice, rugged kind of stone texture. So then, I guess last but not least, is the Pandemic Theater. This is what we built last semester to support the shows. If you are new and did not see the shows last semester, we did a production in here, and my brain is spacing out on the name of the production. Blood at the Root. Went very, very well. You can see we have erected this truss structure, T-R-U-S-S. That is a lot of times used for lighting, but essentially it's a system of pipes and welded zigzags that can span nice long distances and support a good amount of weight. And it allows you to hang lighting. We've also suspended down this sort of wooden frame that we could attach. So we have 4 glass divisions, creating 5 stage sections that are separated by glass. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A lot of times you try and do odd numbers like that when you're separating a stage, because, why? Because that gives you a center, right? Center is usually a very important part of the stage. So if you have an odd number of sections, then one of those sections will be centered. So that's why we've chosen 5. That was a sidetrack, but anyway. You can see we've hung some lighting equipment on the truss already and focused it. It'll need to be focused for the first show of this semester. Is called Red Bike that Holly Holsinger is directing. And we're keeping, as far as I know, the 5 divisions, but they want them to be like cubes of glass. So I think we're gonna add a front and a back somehow, so that they're super protected. And then each actor will be in their own space with their own computer, ring light, microphone, webcam, and sort of broadcast from this space live during the production. These lights that we have up here, which I think I'll get into more detail in just a little while, are LED fixtures. They are called color source pars, and there's a lot of different options that you can get, but this is the deep blue array of color source par. That means it has an extra LED, so it's LEDs are RGB, red, green, blue, right, are the primary colors of light. And then L is added for the deep blue fixture, which is a lime colored LED, and sort of adds a richness to all the other colors when it's mixed in there. So really, really great for stage specifically, which is why we purchased this specific type of LED. And we'll see how those work in a later video. Down front, we have these super fancy LED fixtures. These are strip lights, Color Force 2. And these are the 72-inch, so they're 6 feet long. These are RGB A, so red, green, blue, amber, giving you a really nice warm color option. Whenever you mix that amber in, it sort of warms it up. So really makes people look alive and vibrant in general. So that's the Color Force pars, and we kind of use these as a front fill because there's no pipes up here to hang lighting on, where you would normally have all of these lights out front shooting to fill in people's faces. So we've opted for this sort of ground row to shine up on people's faces and illuminate them in that way. You'll also notice in addition to the 4 subdivisions here, we also have these plexiglass wings. So kind of like we would have curtains on the stage to delineate these different wings of the stage. We've separated them again by plexi. This is a greenhouse plexiglass, which is, it's actually made out of polycarbonate. And you can see it has a pretty good thickness to it. It's, 3/8 of an inch or so thick, not quite a ½ inch thick. And it's a double wall. That's why they use it in greenhouses, because it's insulating. And the light, and you can see it's ribbed like this, so it lets light through, but then it bounces around a little bit and can't get out, which is why the greenhouse then starts to heat up a little bit. But it creates really neat lighting visuals when you have actors on either side of it. And the closer you are to it, the clearer you are. So as you go back, it's kind of horror film, like in the shower scene, kind of like, as you go back, you kind of get a little bit more of an abstract view of whatever's on the other side of it. Buried on the stage right side of the Pandemic Theater over here is this weird silver box that says no smoking. This silver box is a spray booth, so if we're spray painting, which you can see like at some point somebody was spray painting inside of here, But yeah, so if you're spray painting, you can turn this on. It's a huge fan that is exhausting the air from whatever you're spraying, catching the bad particles in these filters here so it doesn't go out and kill the birdies. But most importantly, it is taking the fumes away from you whenever you're spray painting. So really nice, well-ventilated shop. And it's not just spray painting either. Spray adhesive, varnishing, staining, any kind of oil-based paint, things like that are real high VOC, really stinky and really poisonous fumes. You can do over here near this spray booth typically, and then that pulls those fumes away from you. There's also another secret little exit back here. Takes you back out into the back of the parking garage again. And then over here next to the spray booth, we have another secret sink that's not used as much as it probably should be actually, but it's hidden back here away. Stage left of the Pandemic Theater, all the storage of all the sets gone by. So there's a lot of waste in theater, but I like to try and predict what is going to be able to be used again. For instance, this little statue here from The Importance of Being Earnest, that's another vacuum form. So it's a piece of plastic that was molded around a probably plaster statue or cement statue. But while it might not look like this in whatever future show we use it for, I really think it could be usable again, even if we, cut it out and make a backside to it, carve a backside so that it looks like a freestanding sculpture, or paint it a different color, and it might fit into a different set scheme, something like that. But try and predict and save as much as I can, but obviously there's very limited storage space for us to be able to keep things. So a lot of stuff does go by the wayside into the dumpster. This over here is kind of the stage management, and this is the booth, the control booth, right, for the Pandemic Theater. Stage manager usually sits here and calls the shows. That's the remote for the projector. So if we're using projections, which I think for some of the shows this semester, or for Holly's show, Red Bike, we will be using projections, I believe. Stage manager can control the projector here. And then this is a computer that's running QLab, which we'll learn about a little bit later. But QLab is the program that we're capable of, because there's no dimmers in here, right? This is just a scene shop. So there's not dimmers like you would have in a theater for the lighting. But luckily we have all these LEDs. And so I've got this little box here that allows us to control those LEDs from any computer that we want to control it from. So we're using a Mac Mini to run a program called QLab. QLab was typically designed for sound design, but in this case it also has a lighting design feature and a projections feature. And so we can feasibly run sound, lighting, and projections all from this one computer, which reduces the amount of people in the room, which nowadays is really good. I long for the day that we can have more people in the room working together and collaborating. But right now it's best to keep it as few people as possible. And so one computer and one person can run sound, lighting, and projections all from a single go button. So the stage manager calls go, this person hits go, and that would run a sound cue, a lighting cue, a projection cue, or all three, or however you program it. We'll learn more about that program at a later date as well. So that's the Pandemic Theater. This is kind of a cool view of it because you can see the wings that we've created. I'll also tag onto this a little bit about the truss, because I think truss is a really useful tool. We were very lucky to have it. And so I'll tag onto this a video of how this truss went up, and so you can see kind of how that truss operates, how it goes together. It's really easy. It comes together and apart really, really simply. and it's nice and lightweight, so one person can do it. I did most of this by myself, and then Russ Borski came in and helped me do some of the last touches as we were raising stuff up in the air, which you'll see. But yeah, so it's a really great system, and the next video that you'll see will go into more detail on how this was put together. All right, that's it for this one. Stay tuned for the Truss segment. Thanks. All right, hi folks. Today we are looking at Truss, lighting truss, T-R-U-S-S, and how that goes together and how that might be used. And then in a later video, you'll see how we are standing it up and everything like that. So this is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about lighting truss here. So you'll see it's a series of 4 in this case, or 2 in some cases, tubes, right, that have welded diagonals here. This shape is what provides its sturdibility, I like to say, or the structural integrity. In theater, the sort of gold standard is these tubes are the ones that you would hang lighting on, right? And those are 1.5 inch Schedule 40 pipe. Schedule 40 is how we talk about the thickness of the wall of a pipe, okay? Schedule 40, really, really nice and sturdy. So you'll see that this is basically 4 Schedule 40 pipes that have these diagonals. I think that they're 3/4 inch diagonals welded in, and it makes it really, really rigid. You'll notice that there's absolutely no flex or bend, and this is a 10-foot long piece. So we're able to join these together, and I'll show you the joiners in just a second, but the ends you see are hollow, and there's a hole here for the pin to go through. We're able to join many, many pieces together to span really, really big distances. In this case, we'll be doing 20 feet, and it's capable of supporting a lot of weight over that 20 feet, which is really, really handy for us. And you saw how easy I lifted that up, right? So this is just aluminum. Sometimes it's steel, but the aluminum is really nice and lightweight, very manageable. And there's all kinds of accessories that you can get for the truss. We don't personally at CSU own so many of them. We own a couple though. So let's take a look at that. You'll see over here, this is what's called a corner block, right? And this is actually a 6-way corner block, right? So we can take these are little couplers that we attach there, and you can see there's a hole here too. So we can move those over to this side or add more over there. What that allows us to do is when we put these together, now we can also attach a truss coming off this way, right? Up and down, or side to side. This case. So if we did something like this, now you can see you can have truss coming off this way and this way, create kind of a T shape out of the truss. And it's just pretty easy to put together. Another accessory that we have is this right here, which we'll be attaching in just a minute. This is called a base plate. Ours did not come with these holes in it. We drilled these holes, and that's so that we can attach this to the ground. In many cases, people don't want to attach to the ground, so they make these base plates solid, and you can put the holes wherever you want, or whatever suits your needs, or you can set sandbags on them to weigh them down. So that's another accessory. And then I showed you the hole earlier of how they sort of can join together, right? These are called couplers, truss couplers, and they work along with these pins and cotter pins, okay? You'll see in just a second how all of that goes together, but essentially, it's really, really neat. So I can take a couple of these, and these will be what I use to join those together right there in the center. And what's super nice about truss, we've talked in the past about how theater scenery is typically very, very temporary, right? It's used for one show and then either thrown out or reconfigured for other shows. Well, what's nice about Truss is how easily it comes apart and goes back together again. And all you need is really one tool. So this is called a dead blow. It's sort of a hard plastic. You could use one of those. Here's a smaller version. Rubber mallet sometimes will even do it. Things that we don't want to use, or if we have to in a pinch, use very, very gently, is a metal hammer. And that's only because, you know, like I said, this is aluminum, so if you're hitting it really hard with a metal hammer, it's gonna start to disfigure it over time, right? And we don't like that. So if you see anybody putting truss together ever with one of these, just yell at them, because that will destroy them over time. I have this sitting here because I didn't have any lighting C-clamps. This is sort of a close proximity to a lighting C-clamp and how those function, because I wanted to show you in just a little bit what another way that we don't want to destroy truss, essentially, is by using a regular C-clamp like this and tightening that on there. You can see, as I were to tighten that, this piece right here would be putting pressure on one point, right? And eventually that could, if you tighten it too much, which you want it to be tight because you don't want the light to fall off, then that would eventually dent that truss or mar that truss, and any disruptions or dents in this structure could result in lowering its structural integrity, right? Which we do not want. We don't want to hurt that truss at all. So for that reason, another accessory that we've taken to purchase are these right here. This is called, set up the camera so you can see what I'm doing here. This is called a mini claw. It's just a different kind of lighting clamp. And you can see you don't even need wrenches to use this, which is super nice. It has a T-bar there, so you can just tighten and loosen it with your hands. If something's going to be vibrating, you might want to put a wrench on this and twist it, give it a little extra turn. But what's great about these C-clamps, you see, is there's not a fixed point that pinches into the truss. So you can sort of, let's see, this is a good spot. You can sort of clamp those on there, right? And then the washer goes on, sort of falls down into the slot. Your light would be attached here to this piece. And then it just hand tightens on there, which is a thing of beauty. Really nice and tight and reliable. And now that's there. And it's basically, it doesn't have this fixed point that's pushing into there that would dent the truss. It just is giving that truss a good old fashioned hug, right? And that friction, because you're touching that pipe in so much more of a surface area, provides a lot more friction, and that provides a lot more sturability, as I said before. It just makes it really, really easy, really a strong connection, and things don't tend to twist and spin on there. Great, so that was a little aside. I'm gonna try out this dead blow first, bringing this over here. I'll show you how these couplers go on. So, this is, again, your coupler. I don't know if you can see this, but one important kind of factor is that these holes on the outside of the truss are bigger than the holes on the other side. You see how small the hole is on this side? And that is because these pins are directional in that way. These pins get thinner and thinner as they go. So what that means is the pin wants to go in this way, from outside to inside. And that's pretty important, as you'll see in just a second. But let me set this down, see if I can get a decent angle on here for you to see what I'm doing. I will be hitting this with a dead blow, so I'm hoping that that isn't the loudest thing in the world for you. So these are harder to tell, but these holes in the truss couplers are also tapered, right? So if I try and put the pin in this way, that's all the further it goes. That's not gonna work for us. So we wanna make sure that this goes in this direction, which means that this hole wants to be towards the outside of the truss, right? So if I spread this apart, I'm gonna put this in there. And if you keep a pin on you, you can always test which way those want to go. Right, like that. Testing again, so it definitely goes this way. Just want to get them close for now. So that's the correct way. Goes towards the outside. And then all I have to do, in theory, push these together. And you'll see those holes almost line up already. So no tools yet, right? That's handy. No tools yet. And now I just need to put this pin through, right? You'll see that these pins have a little hole in the very end of them, right? And that hole is after you have it put through the thing, put through the truss coupler and the truss, then this pin goes in there and that stops it from being able to pull out, right? So that's what that little hole is. And if this were on the outside of the truss, it'd be easy for, where is it? There. If this were on the outside of the truss, it'd be easy for somebody to come along and accidentally bump that out, right? And the whole truss could fall apart. And then your lighting rig falls down and everybody screams and it is very sad. So we don't want to do that. So now we just have to get it, essentially that pin, so that we can see the hole here. You can see we almost can see the hole. It's about halfway sticking out. So what we want to do then is go ahead and just do a couple little taps with a dead blow. And now we should be able to get that pin in there, right? That pin is in that hole, right? And so now, chances of that pulling out, very, very, very small. Something serious would have to go wrong, which, you know, sometimes there's nothing you can do, I guess, but that is gonna help us out. So this one, pushing in the hole there. Again, a couple light taps, get that sticking out. Just put this pin through, boom. Just that easy. So truss, really, really easy to work with. I'm just gonna continue working my way around here. Tapping those through. Can you see those ones that I'm working on? No. Looking at this. Maybe. Yeah, so you can see it here. Again, pushing that pin in there. Couple light taps. Just enough to get that hole exposed. Oh, not quite there yet. This depo's a little bit harder, but it's still not quite metal. that's able to allow us to get that pin on there. Push that pin through, push that pin through. So now those are both safe, right? And there's 4 of these, so now we gotta roll the truss. Rollin', rollin', rollin'. Keep them doggies rollin'. Rollin', 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 right. Has anybody seen that movie? Know that movie? Blues Brothers. Really, really entertaining if you haven't seen it. It's a lot of fun. One here. One here. So eventually, if something were to happen and one of these pins were to get bent, or you did have to use a hammer and it disfigured, it's really easy to just go ahead and purchase new pins. But if you're using something like this, like a dead blow, where this is just a hard plastic, right? And it's not metal on metal, that's gonna help it last a good amount of time. So that's how you put the 2 pieces of truss together. I don't know if this will work, but if I do something like this, then you'll be able to see, as I lift this end, that stays really nice and rigid, right? So absolutely no deflection over 20 feet. Deflection is, you know, some kind of bend right in there due to stress. And so over 20 feet, you get none of that, which is really, really beautiful. Beautiful thing. And you can hang a lot of weight on there. I'll have to look up, again, what this rating is on this truss, but you know, it'll be several hundred or even thousands of pounds. Cool, so then next, what I'm gonna do, I'm going to be putting this base plate on there, on this piece. Because basically what we're doing, we have 4 of these towers. One here in this corner, one over there in that corner, one back there in that corner, one over here in this corner. And then these pieces connect them across the top. So we're kind of creating soccer goals, right? Best sport in the world. We're creating soccer goals with these essentially. So now, if I set this up here, you can kind of see how those go together. First, you can see this one came with pins installed, which is, or maybe you can't see, I don't know. This one came with pins installed in it. Some people store it that way so that they know that they haven't lost any. I store them in these little cups like this. And this cup has the same amount of pins as those other cups have of couplers. So then I know that I have the right amount as well. So I'll take these all out here. And then the base plate, simply, I hope, he says simply and then it won't go in. Locks and loads in there. On these base plates, again, these are tapered holes, and so then the smaller hole wants to be towards the inside. Pushes right together like that. Like a thing of beauty. A thing of beauty. And these go in. Dead blow. Pin, pin. Don't forget these. It's kind of easy to do, actually. accidentally too, which is kind of scary. But the other thing is when you're using truss in a show, you should have the stage manager always do a visual check at the beginning, right? Pre-show check. They're going to check the lights, they're going to check the sound, make sure all that stuff's working, make sure all the props are where they're supposed to be. They should also be checking the truss to make sure that all of these pins are still in, still visible. I'm going to roll this a second. Is that still in there? Yeah, so that way, before you start the show, they know that everything is safe from a truss standpoint, because sometimes in the shows, the great thing about truss is that it's very climbable, right? Directors love that. So in a lot of shows, the truss is climbed upon by the actors. We just did a show called The Tree of Oedipus that I designed here at Cleveland State. And that set was almost primarily truss. And in order to get the really interesting levels that the directors always want, we had it be climbable, right? So those stage managers definitely took the time to double check each one of these pins right here, the cotter pin it's called, and that these pins were all safe and secure. Right? So that's attaching the base plate that this is going to stand up on. And then, like I said, we're creating soccer goals, right? So the last thing we want to do is to the top of one of these, because innately these really just connect end to end, like that, right? So they connect into a straight line. So we need something like this to change the directionality of the truss. So in this case, we're using one of these corner blocks here. And right now, this is set up for a T, because that's how we used it in Tree of Oedipus. You see it, you can have one coming off this way, one coming off this way. Well, we'll eventually be able to remove these because, well, we won't be using them, right? So, but we do want these, because we do want to create a 90-degree angle, which will be the top of the goalpost, right? So that just pushes together pretty easily like that. I love this little phone stand. I hope this is helpful for you folks too. I could have used this a long time ago. Cool. So once again, second verse, same as the first. Tap, tap, tap. Pin, pin, pin. Tap, 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 pin, pin, pin. All the way around. Sometimes, I've been having a lot of luck up to this point, but sometimes it's harder than others. It takes a little more persuasion. You can see this wasn't pushing all the way in. So the pin kind of started at an angle, and as you tap it, because it's tapered, that's exactly why it's designed that way, that turned itself in and sucked this in tight together. That's what's so brilliant about the way that Truss is designed. This is a brand called Global Truss, which is the brand, the maker of the truss. And this is a style called Dura Truss. There's a lot of different styles. Main thing that in common though is they all have these diagonals, and that diagonal is what causes all of the sturdybility. Because these diagonals oppose each other, these pipes don't want to shift side to side this way, and you'll see that these turn and go the opposite way on the side, so then it doesn't want to shift in any direction, right? The main difference is some styles of truss have one of these in between here as well. Those are a lot more expensive, and unfortunately we couldn't afford that. I wanted them, but because they're easier to climb, right? Because then you kind of have these horizontal ladder pieces just like this that you're able to climb upon. These ones, you know, your foot's kind of like at a diagonal, so it's just slightly less comfortable. Still very climbable and very safe, but you know, it you just can't afford everything, I guess. So I'm gonna go ahead and roll in. Keep them dogs rolling. You get sick of that song if you aren't already. So again, tap, tap, tap. Pin, pin, pin. Tap, tap, tap. Pin, pin, pin. So that's that easy, folks. To go ahead and attach a base plate, attach a corner block, attach two truss in line with each other using those truss couplers. And then, like I said, we can now go ahead and remove these extras. It wouldn't hurt anything to have them on there, but I don't know if it would be as aesthetically pleasing. And what are we if we don't have pleasing aesthetics, right? In art or theater. Somebody, Sporsky, always says to me and reminds me that there is no beauty in perfection. But I think that there's a lot of beauty in striving for it. So we have very fun discussions about that. What am I using? I'm using 6-sided, can you see this? It's a little blurry, huh? 6-sided tool, shaped like an L or a 7 or a J. That's a hex wrench, Allen wrench, okay? This is, does it say the size? This is a 3/8. So we'll use this 3/8 a lot in theater. It will undo coffin locks, which like sort of lock stages together. We might look at those sometime. In this case, I'm using it to loosen these couplers off of the corner block, right? So these couplers just have a hole all the way through them. They also have this, this tapered hole. So the pin goes one direction in there, locks it together really tight, doesn't go this way, right? But it does go this way. And then it has an Allen machine screw that goes in there and allows you to tighten it into this threaded hole in the corner block. You see, that's a threaded hole that screw can thread into, right? There's another hole there. Isn't that interesting? Well, you see on the bottom of this coupler, there's a little pin. What the heck's that all about? Why does that do that? Well, basically, if you put that pin in the hole and then put this and tighten it in there, what that has done for me, it has oriented it so that the larger hole is on the outside, smaller hole's on the inside of the diagonal, so that my pin's gonna go in the correct way. If you can picture this system without that, I could tighten this in really tight, but this would still be capable of spinning, right? Which could then in turn loosen that nut, or it could just make it harder to get this oriented correctly so the pin is going in the correct direction. So they have very, very kindly put that there so that this has no choice but to be in the correct orientation to line up with all the rest of the truss. Super, super brilliant. And we like it when people have really thought about our tools. Because here's the thing about tools. They're here to make our life easier, believe it or not. They're here to make our life easier. That's why we have developed them, right? So if we're having a lot of trouble, life is feeling a lot harder, then could be two things going on. You could have the wrong tool, which is possible, or you could be using the tool that you have incorrectly, right? Which is maybe even a more popular outcome, I would say, is that, knowing how to use your tools to make your life easier is everything, right? That's why we have tools. Otherwise, just don't use the tool, right? If this tool's making your life harder, then don't use it. But that's kind of an aside. In this case, where did I start on that? Oh yeah, in this case, essentially, they've developed this system here to make our life even easier when we're using Truss. You've seen how easy it is that this all goes together, right? So they've even thought of the spinning. You can see as I loosened it and that pin came out of the hole, this started to spin, right? Which would have made our life harder. We don't want that when we're using a tool. So I think that is really everything I wanted to tell you today about the truss. And then the next video that you'll see probably should be this truss attaching into the ground, which we'll use lag screws for, and then attaching across the top, and that will join with these couplers here that we've left. These couplers right here. So thanks for watching. I hope that was informative, and I hope that allows you to sort of know what you're looking at when you're encountering truss in the theater world. In the event industry, it's extremely popular, because you're throwing events anywhere. It's not necessarily in a theater where we already have pipes to hang stuff on, right? So in the event industry, truss is extremely, extremely popular because we could be in the lobby of the theater and have a great event, but less places to hang lights, right? So easy to set up a truss. And like I said, the bases you can throw sandbags on them to weigh them down if you can't attach into the ground. So really versatile, good to know tool that we are going to use for our pandemic theater. So thanks again. So we're just putting in some of these. These are 5/16 inch lags. First you got to pick a pre-drill that's a little bit smaller, obviously, than the threads of that lag. And then, let's see. Where you can see what's going on. I can hold, yeah. That'd be great. And then I'm going to pre-drill this one right here. So you just see one pre-drill all the way in each one of these holes. Each one of these holes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oops. Come on. And then lag, washer, impact driver to really tighten it up good. I'll edit it to turn your volume down on that before. You really want to just go with a lag until that washer is not loosened. Over tighten with one of these and you'll just snap the head of that lag off there. So you do have to be careful of that when you're using an impact driver. Kind of saw when that washer started to calm down, then you got to check it. No wiggles, that's good. And then one more in here. Very good. That's it. It's that easy. 4 legs. Now this piece of truss. Whew. Very little wiggle, which is great. And now we're about to attach this goalpost over here across the top with that piece of truss. So it'll be a lot sturdier and be able to stand very comfortably, freely on its own.
ladder underneath there and put something on it to hold that up.
Yeah.
Then I can use that ladder to hold it up. Put it under a little bit more.
Probably okay, you know, but
I think it was just one of those raining. I just went here.
actually, if I get my pins, then I can move this side from the ladder, actually. You know? Probably. Two. Like, if you want to get that side.
Yeah.
Like, on the back. Yeah.
Ready?
Okay. Going this way? Yeah, that's good. That should be good.
Coming on the other side?
Um,
Let me go on that side. Just hold it. Okay.
that. Do not try at home. And so that is sort of just the nature of it. So it's very distracting. I think it will be helpful to put them somewhere in this building still, so they're close by for troubleshooting or whatever, communication. Probably up on the second floor in one of the abandoned classrooms or something. But this computer will probably still be the Zoom computer running up there. At least that's my hope. The rest of the stuff, which we'll get into OBS a little bit later on as well, will be run from my iMac. I got a new 27-inch iMac here in the office, and that will be running OBS, which is going to be allowing us to sort of mix the show visually and audio-wise and send it to Zoom. There's a way to trick Zoom that your camera is an OBS feed, essentially, which we'll get into what that means, open broadcast software. These are the mics that the folks will be using this semester, I think. Blue Yetis, they're really nice quality microphone. They have their own mute button. They can plug headphones into the bottom of it and have control of their own headphones, so they can hear as much or as little as they need to. But really great system. We also got everybody these Logitech, all the actors, these Logitech webcams that are capable of 4K, although we'll be using them in 1080 because I think that's all Zoom and OBS are actually capable of, but it looks really crisp and crystal clear, so it's nice. So that's what we know so far. Is my tech land over here in my office. We have 3 3D printers. One of these will eventually usually live up in the computer lab so that we can get into some 3D printing and things like that for my THE 303 class, for instance, which is design technology for theater, and how do you design files that you can 3D print in plastic. This is PLA plastic that's loaded in there right now. It's the easiest one to print. And this is the projector we use for productions. Panasonic, it's a 8,000 lumen projector, I believe. And so really nice bright punching projector to punch through the brightness of stage lights and everything like that. But I just have it, not normally in my office, but right now I wanted to get out of the dusty wonderland of the shop. A shop is not the most ideal place for all this electrical equipment to be because of how much dust is produced out there. But yeah, so that's where, that's the projector and some of the 3D printers. And over here on this side, we have a wide format printer for printing up to 24 inches wide or 150 feet long. So you can print really big sheets up to 2 feet wide and 150 feet long. Over here on this printer. So that was just a little tour of some of the stuff that we have available to us when we're face-to-face in person here, which we hopefully will be later on this semester. But I wanted to get you a sneak peek so you can see a little bit of how the shop is arranged right now, so you know what to expect when you finally do come down to the 13th Street building for face-to-face classes.